Alright, what's going on, everybody? So, this is going to be my review for the second episode of Jujutsu Kaisen entitled For Myself. Now, I wasn't sold with last week's episode, I wasn't really seeing the hype, but with this week's episode, I thought it was pretty good. I actually don't really have, honestly, want to say I don't really have anything negative to really say about this episode. To be honest, I mean, it was a good episode. It was definitely better than last week's episode, in my opinion. While I still wasn't like completely blown away by it, there was a lot of stuff to like. So to kind of get into it, it basically picks up where the last episode left off, and Fushiguro is about to exorcise Itadori, who's been possessed, and then uh, Fushiguro's teacher Satoru, and please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing any of these names, but so Satoru shows up, and basically, Itadori is. We find out that Itadori is able to basically, for lack of a better word, suppress the curse inside of him. And in this week's episode, we learned that the curse inside of him is it's named Sukuna, and let me make sure that I'm actually pronouncing that right. Uh, Ryumin Sukuna, right? And Sukuna, he he basically possessed Idori in the last episode, and in the beginning of this episode, we get a brief fight. I don't really want to call it a fight because it was very very brief, but we get this brief action scene with Satoru fighting, or well, let's just say fighting, just fighting Itadori, and I gotta say, man, so Satoru he shows up and he's like, I'm gonna show off because my student's here. And not only did he show off, but the animation studio, Mappa, I believe it's called. Yeah. They showed off too. Cause I gotta say, last week if I didn't mention before, yeah, the animation is good, man. That's one thing about this. Whether the show is gonna end up crap, or it's gonna end up or if it's gonna end up being the greatest of all time, like we gotta put some respect on Studio Mappa though. Cause here's the thing. I said this in one of my reviews that I did yesterday for a different show, and I'll say it again, man. I love it when an animation studio isn't afraid to when they animate scenes. I love it when they're not afraid to move the camera. Have your shots be dynamic, make it look cinematic. Do whatever you got to do to make the fight scenes and the action just look really really great, and that's what they did here. For example, Satoru is moving so fast that it's like he's teleporting, and I like how he teleports or moves behind Sakana, and when he moves behind him, the camera actually follows him. It well, not follows him, but like the camera like kind of rotates, and I thought that was cool. The camera also follows Sakana when he does, I guess you could say, like a lunge attack, like a counter attack against Satoru. Honestly, the fights were great. The fight was great. It was a good way to open up this week's episode. And then not only that, another thing that I can point out, even though a lot of the humor didn't land for me in this episode, there was this one scene where Itadori he's going to transfer to the Jujutsu school for like sorcery that Fushiguro and Satoru are from, and so he meets the principal Yaga, and when he's introducing himself, he's like, "Hi, my name's Itadori, and I like girls like Jennifer Lawrence." And that thing, out of everything in this episode, just made me chuckle. I don't know why. It was so random. And I think later on, when he goes into his dorm room, I think later on he has a picture. I think he has a poster of Jennifer Lawrence in his room. I don't know if that was supposed to be her, but it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, like I thought that was funny. I mean, the humor, or at least that one bit of humor, that worked. Like I said, the fight scene was good. Another thing I can say, the premise, like the premise, the driving force, the Itadori's motivation. Now that I have, now that I know a bit more about this after the second episode, after this episode, I can honestly say that this feels unique in terms of the way that it's being set up. Now I do get a feeling of I do get this feeling of familiarity when it comes to this show, just in just in certain ways. Like with this episode, we get the introduction of the Jujutsu High School in Tokyo, and just immediately like the way it's set up. Like right now, as I'm recording this, I'm looking at the fandom page that has like all the characters and stuff on it. And so like the way that it's set up to where like okay, there's three first year students. They're at a school for sorcery. Um, Not only that, but with Itadori having Sakana inside of him, that whole thing, and like when I'm looking at the opening and it shows where Itadori is like right by Sakana. I guess this is supposed I guess that's that whole thing in the opening. Like I think it's like the last part of the opening. I think that's supposed to be inside of him. Like even the first time I saw that last week, and I forgot, I don't think I mentioned this, but like I got Naruto vibes. Cause that remind like what does that remind y'all of? If y'all are fans of Naruto, that probably reminds you of all the times that you saw Naruto and he's like standing where the Nine Tails is, and that's what that's what a lot of this kind of reminded me of, or at least in this week's episode, it kind of reminded me of Naruto. Then like last week, I was kind of getting a little bit of Blue Exorcist vibes, and then as I looked back on the first episode. As I look back on the first episode earlier this week, and I actually rewatched it before I watched the second episode, I kind of got Mob Psycho 100 a little bit. Like it feels familiar. It feels similar to other shows, but it honestly the premise of it, I can say, like I said, it's unique. I like the idea that he has to go around and basically find these fingers, and he has to consume this curse. And I like the idea that he's also just like destined to die, and in this episode he's kind of struggling. Well, not really struggling, but he's not really struggling. But it's like, at a certain point, he's trying to uh, get the principal's approval for him to go to the school, and he's like, why do you want to be a sorcerer or whatever? And Itadori, like his first response is like, okay, my grandfather told me to do it. Like my grandfather, his grandfather's dying wish was for him to save people. And so the principal was like, yo, you just gonna do it because somebody told you to. And I like what he told him though. I like that he said something like, you're gonna end up cursing your grandfather or something like that by the end of it, if you were to do it just because he told you to. Because he tells him, I believe he tells him, and I believe I think maybe Satoru says something also, that the job is hard. You're gonna see some messed up crap. You're gonna see some messed up crap while you're doing this. And so the reason why Yaga was so hard on him, and the reason why he told him, you doing this just because, just because your grandfather told you to. That's not a good reason. That's not a good reason at all. And so, one thing that I do like about this episode, and one reason why I believe it is actually this episode is called For Myself. The reason why I think that it's called that, and I think the whole central focus of the episode is Itadori himself, and that is something that in the premiere we didn't really, it didn't really hone in on Itadori, and I think that that was one reason why it wasn't a strong opening for me. Is just that, with this episode we get Itadori finding his resolve and finding a reason as to why he's going to be hunting down, or at least helping to hunt down those fingers. And I honestly, like I said, I like the setup. I think it's very unique. But one thing that I hope that they do not do, because Satoru makes it clear. He gives him an ultimatum. He's like, you can either die now or you can die later. And I hope that they stick to that. I hope it's nothing. I hope they don't do something where it's like, oh, he like, yo, this is two things I don't want them to do. One thing I don't want them to do is cop out on it. Somehow, some way, he finds some way, some loophole, or they they have a change of heart, and he somehow gets to live a normal life or whatever afterwards, or anything like that. I don't want that to happen. I also don't want them. I really hope they don't go the route of Naruto. Whereas in Naruto, with Kurama, he ended up being friends with Kurama after a certain point. Like, I don't want him to end up being like buddy buddy with Sakana. Like, I'm actually expecting Sakana to actually I'm expecting him to actually, butt heads with Itadori, and even get in the way of Itadori trying to get the curse objects, the fingers. But then at the same time, now that I say that, he want it's actually a benefit to Sakana, him getting the fingers. So maybe not that, but yeah, I just don't want him to be buddy buddy with dude. I honestly, like, the way that this should end, the way that this show should end is, um Itadori being surrounded by friends, and uh either Satoru or Fushiguro, they have to be the ones to kill him, or somebody or someone else that's close to him, because I think that would be a cool ending for the show. But I'm just kind of rambling on now. Yeah, I think that's about it. Everything I had to say about this. Let me check my notes one more time, and then we'll go ahead and basically wrap this one up, because I think I said quite a lot. I mean, to be honest with y'all, like I said before, I think this was a way better episode. I also did like the idea, or I like what I saw with the principal and his I guess you could say curse power, and how he basically brought the doll to life. He also has that character also has a very for lack of a better word, unique sort of personality. He's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, or at least to me, I thought it was weird. Um, let's see. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything before I go ahead and close this out. Oh yeah, there's another show that this kind of reminded me of. With Sakana being able to um, there's a scene where, well, there's like multiple scenes where like a mouth would appear on Itadori's body, where Sakana will start talking, and like the way that eyes and mouths would appear on Itadori, that remind me of Parasite. I don't know if some of y'all even know what that is, but it kind of reminded me of that show Parasite. Like, honestly, this feels like a lot of different things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, honestly, like I said, not the greatest thing in the world, but honestly, this was a cool episode. I can't even fake on it. Alright, so I think I just about covered everything in this review. Thank you guys for watching. What I think I might do, because I don't think I'm going to be able to cover this weekly, I might end up having to wait until the final episode, and then I'll end up just doing a full on review. If not, and I'm actually able to do a review every once in a while, what I might end up doing is like waiting until middle of the season and then do a big video. Then maybe, I'm not sure, but it just depends, because I'm also covering other shows, so I'm not sure. Then I'm also a little bit busy at the moment, so we'll see. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. This has been Fear No Hate. I'm out of here. Peace.